In this video, I'm going to fix a dripping Kholer Devonshire rubbed bronze bathroom faucet. It's not that I'm particularly handy or am used to fixing things, but I wanted to prove to my better half that I was not completely helpless and have to call a plumber for something as simple as this. And so I tried to dig into it, but on YouTube I could not find a video that described how to get these handles off. And so I thought I would put this video together. One of the things that was frustrating me looking at YouTube videos was that there was such a wide array of tools and different parts, and I couldn't seem to figure out what I would need. Most of the videos want you to take an Allen wrench like this and remove a set screw that's on the faucet handle, but the one on the Peerless faucet seems smooth and that none of these tools would fit or do anything, so that was out of the question. Some of the other faucet videos required you to pop a cap off, or basically manhandle something and get that off, and then just use a screwdriver. But in the case of the Peerless faucet, that also didn't work. So what it turned out you needed was a number 10 Torx tool, and if you go to your hardware store and ask for a number 10 Torx tool, or better yet, get a number of these in case it's a different size. You do need a Phillips head screwdriver once we get into the project. Next problem is you probably will try using something like pliers, but not a good idea. It's probably not going to work when we get into fixing, basically taking some of the parts out and replacing them. If you've got a big crescent wrench, that's good, but this one's a little too big, so I don't really recommend something that large. So if you've got sort of a medium-sized crescent wrench, but for the Peerless faucet, a 5/8" box wrench will do the trick. So that's the ideal tool. Also, because there'll be a little bit of corrosion on things, you may want to have like a little wire brush of some kind, but if you don't have that, a old toothbrush will do fine. I've got cleaning vinegar here because that was able to take off some of the corrosion that was on there and didn't seem to harm the finish. I mixed it with a little bit of water, soaked the parts, but I'll show you how I did that. And then of course we've got for the Peerless faucet, it turns out these Kholer inserts are what actually fit, but safest thing to do is to take apart your faucet and then go to Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware, something like that, and ask them to help you get the right replacement part, but we'll get into that in a minute. Okay, before we start, it's important to turn off the water. Hopefully you're not like me. I turned this off maybe 6 months ago and didn't know how to fix this until just recently. And then this side is still on, so I'm going to make sure that that is off before we get started. And you can see under here, the board is cold. You just need to wrestle with this a little. It might be a little bit stuck, but you should be able to turn that to the right. And then so that it isn't, see now that those are both in the off position. Check up here. Okay, good. Water's off. The next step is to get these handles off, and before we start that, the problem we have is there's some small parts and they could go down the drain, so we want to make sure we close that drain. Highly recommend you take a washcloth or something and put it there and protect that to catch any small parts that fall out while we're undoing these handles. The trickiest part is getting access to the little set screw there. I'll try to zoom in on that, and it may look like just a round smooth hole, but actually the Torx tool will fit in there and lock snugly if you've got the right size. Okay, so the next part, we take the Torx tool and we slot it into that set screw, and then for this one we're gonna, it'll probably, this could be frozen and you might have to really give this some energy to get this going. This one wasn't too bad, but there's a little set screw in there and we have to get that either, it's okay if you take it all the way out. So there we go. Oops. Okay, now we keep going. There it is. Okay, so we'll set that aside. And now what we do is, it's just the top that's going to come off here. So we might have to, not this part, but the handle. So these things can be on there pretty tight. Well, okay, so I was struggling to get this off even after we got off this little set screw. Now, just so I don't lose that, I'm going to put that in my vinegar and water solution. But I had to add another tool. I got a flathead screwdriver. And the key with this faucet is that you're not trying to take this whole thing off. After you remove that set screw, you're just trying to get this handle off. And if we kind of wedge a screwdriver in there, so if you zoom in, if we get down on there, right there, you can see there's a gap there. And I just took this screwdriver in and I just sort of started working it. And it's just old and dirty and corroded, and it's gonna come off. There we go. So you see there's a bunch of corrosion on there. And if you zoom in down in here, we wanna look in down here is, see, the idea is we're trying to get to this Phillips head screw. All right, so we take the screwdriver, and if you have a bigger one, that's better. I just like this short one, and get down in there. And might have to give it a little bit of a, yeah, that can be, see, you'll know it's starting to come loose. Just keep going till that comes off. So got a screw in here that comes out, and you can see it's all corroded. So that's where I'm going to set that in here for now. Let that soak a little bit, and then we'll use the toothbrush to clean that up. So now we're left with, there's a little plastic collar on here that just comes off by finger, so you can just set that aside. This should be in the package of the new one, so you shouldn't have to reuse that, but we'll set that there in any case. And then the main thing is that we've got to, you don't have to take apart any of this other stuff. You just need to get this thing out of here, and that's what the box wrench is for. So if we see that the 5/8 works just right, and look, these things are usually pretty rusted, so I just kind of work them back and forth till I get the there it goes. I just kind of went back and forth just to break the corrosion. So you just turn the whole thing. Eventually you'll be able to just turn it by hand. Okay, and this is what's causing the leaking. This stuff all gets corroded in here and isn't working as it's supposed to. Okay, so maybe I'll do it again on the other side. So we'll put these parts in here, and we don't have to worry about keeping them straight. So this one I've already taken the set screw out of this one, and I'm just gonna mess with this handle, try to break up any corrosion. I'm just trying to get enough of a little gap to see if I can get that screwdriver in there. Almost. Just rocking it back and forth. There, if you see now, if you zoom in on that, I've just gotten enough for that screwdriver to go in there. See, now I can start to work that up, and then pop, it's off, and it's just corroded like the other one. There's no way to really to mix these up, so I'll just put those in the bowl, and I'll take this one off, and then we'll go to the next phase. As we said, this 5/8 inch box wrench, that's going to make this a much easier job. If all you have is a wrench like this, I picked the medium size just because it kind of fits in here better, but you might have to use a larger one depending on how corroded this is. You know, it's much harder to use this kind of wrench. I usually go back and forth just a little bit. I don't know if that's right or not, but just to break the corrosion, and then eventually it's counterclockwise to get this thing off. There we go. And once I do that, I can turn it by hand. Okay, we'll just set that over there with the old one. Now we have water in here, and it's a little bit corroded, so I'm going to take some paper towels and get those down in there. You want to clean all that, any of the junk that's gotten in there. I want to clean that out and get all that water out. So just you can use a probably better to use a rag or something like that you have, but I want to get all this corrosion as best as we can. And I can also dip that in some of this vinegar water. And a lot of times you'll see a lot of gunk on there built up over time, and you'll find that you can use some bathroom cleaner or something, but the vinegar and water will usually take it off as well. Just take your time and don't get too frustrated and get the water out of there. After I use the vinegar, you can see the vinegar water is getting dirty as it gets some of that corrosion out of there. Once I have these clean, you want to make sure and rinse all these parts, because that vinegar is acidic, so you don't want to leave that on there when you reassemble this. So be very careful not to lose any of your parts. I'm just going to check these into this one, this Kholer, which is GP77005-RP. That is going to say on the back here that it is, it'll say either clockwise off or counterclockwise off. So this one is going to be for the left side, the 005. So when you open this, make sure you're careful. Don't lose this little collar in here. But see, nice new clean one if you compare that to the old corroded one. You can just hand tighten this to begin with. Let's get that as tight as you can there. Let's have, there's our new collar. This one is a GP77006-RP. And this one will be for the right side there, the cold water. Some of them say hot and cold, but for some reason these packages didn't reference hot. Okay, so I've got those down just to hand tightness. Now we're going to use the wrench, and the thing is, you don't want to do this either not tight enough or too tight. On the back of the package, it'll tell you basically how much torque you want to apply. I just, if you're uncomfortable with that, it should be like you're lifting that amount of weight, 25 pounds or 35 pounds at the gym or something like that. But I'm just going to, just tight, but I'm not going to yank on it. Oops, let's not break the mirror. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Okay, so that's just basically tight. I'm just going to give it a little more than it's like one extra little push there. I've got the parts dried off now, and this is actually one of the trickiest parts, and if you don't get these lined up right, you'll just be very frustrated. So if you look straight down on here, you'll see that there's kind of a shape in here, and you see how I've got these at an angle. You want to make sure that the set screw hole is facing sort of away from you, because you don't want that showing to your guests or whatever when they're using your bathroom. But lining these up is right. So take one of the handles and find where you can see a little indent there. That's where the set screw has touched this metal. And the idea is to get this so that the set screw hole is in the back, and this can sit nice and straight like that. Same on this one. I locate where the set screw is. The set screw has to match where the hole is. So see, and then I can set that there. So I'm going to install these in that configuration, and if you're not careful, you'll wind up with wonky handles that look funny when you try to use the sink. This side is now on and aligned. I haven't tightened it down yet, but I'm just lining them up and make sure they work. So I'm going to set that on. And so I haven't tightened anything, but I can just check that the faucets, they're turning in the correct direction. On, off, and the handles are straight. So the next thing to do is we have to take these handles off once we know that they're properly aligned. and we get our Phillips head screwdriver, and we have to have one of the little screws here. Get that down in there, and this does not have to be terribly tight, but if it's not tight enough, these will wobble. You don't have to go back through later in a year or so so now one thing I'm doing is I'm keeping this twisted in the off position while I turn this the opposite way. Okay, that's gonna just reasonably tight, so this thing is not wobbling. And now I can sit there, there's my little set screw mark. The set screws on this hole is on that side, and that is good. So let's tighten this one really quickly. Get our screw. I'm putting a lot of downward pressure on there to make sure I don't strip that screw. Okay, I'm just getting it hand tight. Okay, those fit on there nicely. So we go back to our number 10 Torx tool. We have these tiny set screws, which are a real pain. I recommend putting the Torx screw in there, turning this so that we can get access to this hole. And you know what, actually, I'm going to try this a little differently. If you've got nimble enough fingers, I've got fat fingers, so if you've got nimble fingers, you should have no problem. You can get this thing started by hand. Because it's a real pain using this Torx tool if you're in a tight spot. So we're going back to the righty-tighty here. I'm sure if you have the right type of Torx tool, you could get in here with better access and tighten this faster, but this is what I found in the bottom of my tool bag in the garage, so. Just hand tight, so I'm not going to overdo it. Okay, that one's on, and it's nice and firm. So I'll fix this next set screw back in there, and then we'll turn on the water and see what happens. Okay, those are both tight. Get the cameraman out of the way there. Okay, so we go back under here, and if there's any water down here from when you remove the valves, just get that cleaned up, and then you want to turn these so they're in line with the hoses. And I don't hear squirting water anywhere, so that's a good sign. And let's see what we got. All right. So this side was leaking, this side was not leaking, but as long as I'm doing that once in a 10-year job, that's just change both sides, then you don't have to worry about it. Well, that's it. We fixed the Kholer Devonshire rub bronze bathroom faucet that was dripping. And to summarize, we replaced these old corroded cartridges with new. The tools that were required were a Torx number 10 tool, a flathead standard screwdriver, a Phillips head screwdriver, a 5/8 inch box wrench, but if you don't have that, a medium size or large size crescent wrench will do, along with a little bit of cleaning vinegar and water to get the corrosion off the parts. All in all, the cost was about $30 and 2 hours of my time between digging around in the garage for tools, driving over to Lowe's, coming back and doing the installation. I figured it might have cost $180 plus or minus to have a handyman come in, so you'll just have to decide if this would be a do-it-yourself project that you want to take on. Thanks for watching.